Hi everyone, welcome back. Um, let's see. Well, I guess I'll start off with if you ever want to see the video of the podcasts that I attempt to put them on YouTube. I can't say that they're all going to stay up on YouTube because they often censor my stuff over time, but you're welcome to watch the live video of the podcasts over on my YouTube channel as well. And yeah, I wanted to mention that just to, I know a lot of people prefer video, so there is that option. Today I'm going to talk more about dairy. Last week, I sent out a newsletter all about cultured dairy, the health benefits of dairy. Um, I gave my raw milk cream cheese recipe. I posted it on the newsletter, and for those of you who are interested in that, you can get it on my site at heatharshepard.com and go to the blog, and it's the most recent blog post that teaches you how to make raw milk cream cheese. But that newsletter seemed to stir the pot a little bit with regard to dairy as a nutritious food, how to consume dairy in the most optimal ways. I got questions like, should humans even be eating this food because cow milk is produced for their young, for their calf, right? You know, and so is it a good idea for humans to consume this product, right? So I'm going to touch upon this today, and I'm also going to talk about the health benefits of dairy. I'm going to talk about the pasteurization and homogenization of milk. And, you know, we all are familiar with that, but there's some really interesting stories behind that. And however, if that's the only milk available to you, if you don't have a good local source of raw milk, or if you cannot get milk from Miller's Farm, which is an Amish farm in Pennsylvania that actually ships to anywhere in the United States, and you can order raw milk and raw milk products from them, call them to place your order. The government often hassles them because they're creating a very wholesome product that is, how should we say, it threatens the commercial dairy industry. I mean, honestly, it's, you know what it is. But so they often get threatened and hassled by the federal government. However, you can call them and place your order. If real milk, meaning grass-fed raw milk, isn't available in your area. But I'm also going to talk about yeah, what to do if you don't have that raw milk source, if you don't order from Miller's Farm, etc. And I also learned something last week when I sent out my newsletter from a woman on my mailing list who replied, sharing something that I had no idea about, which absolutely blows my mind. It's totally insane. And that is people living in South Carolina. If they're going to purchase raw milk, it is the raw milk has to be the cows have to be fed GMO feed in order to in order to sell raw milk. So the cow, you can say you sell raw milk if you feed your cow GMO feed. Totally fucking insane. What is wrong with the world? So, you know, and I'm not even sure, is this the only state that has this law? You know, because the sale of raw milk is, the regulations are created on a state level, so it differs state by state. Each state has their own set of rules and regulations around this, and there shouldn't even be rules and regulations around this other than keep your cow clean and feed it, you know, a good diet, right? But no. So it's absolutely imbalanced. How about having some rules and regulations around things that really matter, like limiting how many prescription medications somebody can be on, or how's about having a cap or some rules or regulations around, you know, that prescription meds? No, absolutely not. Or around GMOs, or having some rules and regulations around the use of cannabis, right? That people just think is amazing that they made it legal. Why do you think they made it legal? Because you're easier to control, because it makes you sick, because then you get to enter their system. But raw milk, man, let's raid the farms to keep people safe. Oh my gosh. This whole podcast, I'm going to be dissolving myths and sharing some truths about dairy and the dairy industry and so forth. Because for one, I want you to be able to make more informed, more educated decisions when it comes to making your food choices, when it comes to making your dairy choices. And a lot of these truths you really have to dig for. You have to know where to look to get the information. And so I want to help you with this. I want to help bring some clarity here so you can make the best decisions for you and your family with regard to consuming dairy. And for anybody who, I'm a big fan of raw milk, not from GMO fed cows, but from cows raised on grass outside in nature, fed their natural diet. But here's the deal. If you're concerned with what about bacterial contamination in raw milk, right? Because this story has been jammed down our throats for a very long time. And now this is the emotion, the questions that it elicits. But I want to give some perspective here. Did you know that in most years, the number of disease outbreaks reported in milk and milk products do not come mostly from raw milk, but in the dairy industry, they come from ice cream and fresh cheese. When you make hard cheeses, cultured dairy products like yogurt, like kefir, clabbering, etc., the beneficial bacteria crowd out the pathogenic bacteria. And this is a foolproof way for anybody who is concerned with raw milk consumption. This is a foolproof way to eat dairy without being concerned. If somebody really has OCD about the bacterial contamination, which is low, eat those dairy products, because the beneficial microbes wipe out any pathogens that may be there. Maybe there was some sort of E. coli, which only gets in milk if the udders are not cleaned properly, and then a piece of the manure ends up in the milk bucket. That's how you get raw milk contamination. If you're not an idiot and you know how to clean the udders of your cow and you take the time to do so, this is virtually no problem at all. Okay, so for one, ice cream and fresh cheese are the biggest source of, foodborne illness outbreaks in the dairy industry. But in most years, reported outbreaks due to dairy products and dairy consumption are in the single digits, the single numbers. While cases attributed to chicken, foodborne illness from chicken, number in the thousands, but nobody says anything about chicken. Right? They just, make sure you cook it well. That we have to really have some perspective here. Now, we've just been brainwashed to think that cow milk is dirty from raw milk is dirty from, and but there are some very simple rules with regard to cleaning the cow before and after milking, rapidly cooling and chilling the milk after milking, proper cleaning of the milk supplies, which will completely solve any milk contamination issues, of which commercial milk industry does not follow. They don't practice this. And so why is their milk not contaminated? We're going to talk about that. Okay. Now, let's just talk about this for a minute. Let's just take this opportunity right here and talk about this for a minute, because if you want to talk about milk contamination, let's really bring this raw milk as a dangerous food into perspective. For one, commercial milk, whether it's organic in the store or conventional in the store, is much more problematic, is much more likely to be infected with pathogenic bacteria than small scale grass-fed dairy operations that have one to few cows. Here's why. Let's talk about why. Most commercial dairy operations have literally hundreds to thousands of cattle. They need to be milked twice a day. Okay, there's a morning milking, there's a night milking, evening milking. Now, do you think that these hundreds to thousands of cows get washed with soap and vinegar water and are thoroughly cleaned with this water before milking and then are rinsed with warm water after milking to prevent pathogenic bacteria contamination? No, absolutely not. But this is how small scale dairy farmers, we hope, I know we do, speaking for myself, knowing other small scale dairy farmers, this is how they go about it. There's more attention, there's more focus brought to this area. We can sell, we can drink, we can consume a healthy dairy product if we just take some steps. Basically, just take some simple measures to do this. So, this is how we milk our cow, and there's no freaking way large scale dairy farmers do this. They don't have time. There's no time for this. So what does this mean? What this means is that some fecal matter, some manure, is apt to find its way into the milk. Okay, we're not really going to clean them. Some of them are even confined, so they're laying in their crap all day, right? And so what does this mean? It means that commercial milk is much more contaminated from a pathogenic bacterial standpoint than the milk from small scale dairy operations. Now, all of the milk from these large scale dairies, right? Let's say you have a dairy farmer who's got 100 cows, 200 cows, 300 cows. All of the milk from these cows, they're hooked up to machines, and the milk travels to this large stainless steel vat, and that vat is filled 2 times per day with the milk from the cows, right? And it's emptied and delivered to milk distribution companies and processing plants 1 time a week. So what's important to know here and consider is that milk that has been cooled okay, you have the milk go into these large vats after 1 milking. Oh, great, it's cooled to, let's say 40 degrees. 40 degrees Fahrenheit, that's a good temperature to have your milk cooled to. But then here comes the evening milk, and that's nice and warm. Milk out of a cow's udder is not refrigerated. It's not cool, it's warm. It's a breeding ground for pathogens. That's why you have to rapidly cool it after you milk. But no, all of that milk now is now added to that same vat that has already been cooled. So problem number 1 when it comes to contamination is it's just a sure beeline to contamination when you keep the temperature of the milk too high. This increases the likelihood of pathogenic bacteria to proliferate. Pathogens need a nice warm environment to multiply, and this is the perfect breeding ground. It is common knowledge by all dairy farmers that rapid chilling of the milk, 42, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, is one of the most effective ways to discourage any pathogenic bacteria in the milk. So commercial dairies may cool their milk to that temperature. However, that temperature is altered, is heated back up, as soon as the next batch of fresh milk goes in. So, you might be wondering, well, how do they get away with this? What happens to the pathogens? Well, when dairies check the pathogen level of the milk in their tanks, okay, oh shoot, it's creeping up a little bit, it's getting on the high end. They'll throw in acceptable, and I don't think this is allowed technically in the organic industry, but commercial dairy industry, they'll throw in acceptable amounts of chemicals like Clorox bleach to just clear that problem up, just clear it up straight away, right? So they don't have to state this on any labels, on any websites. This is an acceptable practice that doesn't have to be reported, right? But you better report a small scale dairy selling raw milk who's not certified. Of course, there's a lot more I can say about this, but I want to get back to the woman on my mailing list who taught me something new in response to my newsletter. She wrote and asked me, and she says, I live in the state of South Carolina, and the state sale of raw milk is legal if and only if the cattle are allowed to are fed GMO feed. If they're on a GMO diet, sure, you could sell that raw milk. So she asked, is it still acceptable and okay to drink raw milk from cows fed GMOs? Absolutely. I would say absolutely not. Don't drink that raw milk. Do not do it. Don't let them. Yeah, no, don't do that. I had no idea that a law like this existed. Am I surprised at this point in my life and in this point in history? I really shouldn't be. It's really a sly way for the federal government to push GMOs, on small dairy farmers trying to make a legit product for themselves and their consumers and their families. What is actually wrong with people? I can't even believe this is a thing. So my answer to this is, a resounding no. If you live in South Carolina or another state or area of the world who has this law in place that the raw milk is from cows fed GMOs, and that's the only way you can sell your raw milk, then just take a hard freaking pass right there. So now, what do we do from here? Well, this is what we're going to chat more about today. Because the question that can arise from this is, well, is pasteurized milk better than this option? And we're going to explore that question a little bit more here today. And of course, we're going to have a chat more towards the end of this podcast, this episode, as to if it's even a good idea to drink milk from another mammal. Like, should we really be drinking cow milk? The short answer is yes, but I'm going to talk about why, to give you some more clarity and accuracy around this question, which really came from, really stemmed from the vegan world, and their issues with animal food. So before I go there, I want to mention that our farm store is selling some pretty amazing body butter right now. We have single ingredient body butter, and we also have body butter containing 2 ingredients, lard and rose oil, available for sale on our site. Honestly, I'm not even lying. I'm not saying this. I don't care if any of you buy the body butter, because I'm going to use it. I'm going to use the body butter because it's epic. It's amazing. I will never buy another body butter again. No joke, because of how moisturizing and effective at nourishing the skin our handmade body butters are. And I really suspect that this is due to the rich vitamin D content in the lard that our body butters are based from. So if you don't want me to use all the body butter, and if you want to get your hands on some, you can check out our plain and rose infused body butters over at our farm store. Ojoconejo.com, OJOCONEJO.com. And actually, we have decided to offer free shipping on our farm store right now, to anywhere in the continental United States. So whether you're interested in checking out the body butter or other farm products and foods that we offer, like lard, you can head over to our site to check out what's going on our farm. And lastly, I am stoked. I'm excited to announce that starting this March 7th, I'm going to be offering a level 1 classical homeopathy training. So this is a little bit different than how I've taught the practitioner training program in the past. This is a 3-month training that teaches you how to practice homeopathic medicine to help you, to help your family and or your clients overcome root causes of acute and chronic disease. Classes will be held weekly for 2 hours, and once you complete the level 1 training, you can start practicing homeopathic medicine, and you can also continue with levels 2 through 5 that I will be offering after level 1 to further develop and hone your skills as a homeopathic practitioner. So registration for the level 1 training is open now and will remain open until the first 12 spots are filled. And you can learn more about the level 1 training at my site, heatharshepard.com. Go to the homeopathy tab and you'll see the practitioner training page. If you'd like to jump on a 20-minute call to discuss details with regard to the course, you can absolutely do so by filling out the contact form on my site, and we can set up a time to have a chat about level 1. All right, I'm taking you guys on a deep dive into dairy. Honestly, when I was putting this episode together, I had a lot of fun doing it. One, I've been researching dairy more the past several months because as when we got our Jersey cow Rose, who is still currently in milk right now, I took a new deep dive into the land of dairy. So this is a subject that I now have some pretty decent firsthand experience with, and I've been learning a lot and want to share that all with you. So let's continue with our dairy talk, and I want to continue right where we left off, and with regard to pasteurization, and I want to deep dive into this. So when this person asked me, hey, is pasteurized milk okay to drink? Is this a better alternative than GMO raw milk? What would I advise in such a case? I'm going to give you a long answer here, but hopefully the point of it is so you can learn more about pasteurization and how to make the best choice for you. Let's start with why pasteurization became a thing in the first place. And let me just say, it wasn't because they were concerned about humans getting foodborne illnesses. Nope, nothing to do with it. They did this for the processors, distributors, and so forth. They didn't do it for us. They did it for them. So let's start with the cold hard facts. The sale of commercial milk wouldn't be possible without pasteurization. Why? Because of exactly what I've mentioned so far here today. Because much of the milk today, much of commercial milk, is contaminated with pathogenic bacteria due to negligence, due to laziness. So the sale of commercial milk would literally be impossible without pasteurization, because everyone who consumed it would very likely experience a foodborne illness. Fun, and not okay. This is not how milk is designed to be processed, produced. This is not how cows are designed to be raised in this way. No. Pasteurization, what does it do? Well, it destroys all the bacteria. You got the good and the bad. All of it, nope, goes away. It kills all the enzymes in milk, and it alters the proteins in milk. It kills all the good, all the bad bacteria in milk. Okay? So they do that to cover their ass, because they wouldn't be able to have 1,000-head dairy farm and be in business if pasteurization of milk didn't happen. So now commercial dairy farmers, they're subsidized, and so, right, of course, the government has their hand right in the middle of this pot, again, trying to dictate the show. Now, homogenization of milk started in the 50s after pasteurization. So this is why every single milk container in the store, most of them anyway, right, the labels are going to say pasteurized and homogenized milk. I'm going to talk about homogenization in a minute, because drinking homogenized milk or dairy products should be strictly avoided. It's worse than drinking pasteurized milk, and I'm going to explain why here in a few minutes. But pasteurization, it just like homogenization, it extends the shelf life of the milk. So this is another reason why they do it. The 1,000-head dairy operation, they need to have a longer life expectancy on their milk. It's gonna go bad before they get it out there, right? Pasteurize that shit, right? So that's what they do. This extends the shelf life of the milk, and they don't do this for your safety. Don't be fooled. Um, Pasteurization extends the shelf life of milk up to 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, fresh raw milk. I mean, you got a small window here, 5 7 days before it starts to go off. Before you need to do something with it. So extending the shelf life means more money in the pockets of the industry and the federal government, and it means dairy farmers can go about their jobs in a half-assed way and not pay any mind or attention to the treatment care feed of their cattle, because a little Clorox bleach, a little pasteurization is going to cover their ass. So pasteurization occurred before homogenization because it created a problem. It created a big problem. And, you know, the milkman doesn't have to go out every day. Thank God, right? Because pasteurized milk was developed, and now, the shelf life is longer. So people don't need fresh milk on their steps every morning. Don't need that. We have pasteurized milk, you know, and we don't need that availability anymore on a daily basis. So, you know, what happened though, as soon as the milk started to get pasteurized, sure, it started to extend the shelf life, but another problem became clear pretty quickly, and that problem has to do with sludge. So the pasteurized milk that's been sitting there for weeks started to develop a sludge on the bottom of the milk. So you have your milk jug, carton, and on the bottom this thick like layer of literally sludge like it's like a thick protein shake mixed with slushy snow started to develop on the bottom of the milk. And, what is this? Well, the sludge was a combination of dead bacteria because pasteurization kills everything. So then there's the dead cells. And the sludge also consists of white blood cells. So why? When a cow gets mastitis from being over milked or under milked or improperly cleaned, mastitis can develop, which is an infection of the mammary tissue. And just like humans, when cows develop an infection, they produce more white blood cells to try and fight the infection. Now, I'm sure many of you moms out there have experienced the absolute terror horror show of mastitis, and you could still feed your breastfeed your child, sure, but it was insanely painful, and the child could still drink that milk without getting ill. Just like you can still drink milk from a cow who has mastitis, but it's going to be more stringy, more clotted. And if it's commercial, it's going to contain antibiotics. But it's going to contain more white blood cells, particularly the leukocytes. So now, personally, I wouldn't drink this. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink milk from a cow who has mastitis. But the point I'm trying to make here is that if you do drink milk from a cow who has mastitis, it's not going to breed or harbor foodborne illness. And technically, dairy farmers are supposed to throw away milk from cows with mastitis, but this rarely happens. But what happens is, if the cow has mastitis, which is very common in commercial dairying due to the negligence and sloppy care of their herd, the white blood cells end up in the milk from the cows with mastitis and contribute to the sludge on the bottom. So you have a shit ton of white blood cells on the bottom mixed with dead bacteria, dead cells from the pasteurization of milk. So now what do we need to do, folks, is we need to homogenize the milk. So here we go. We're going to homogenize it. What a remarkable discovery. I mean, they think this is some genius breakthrough that actually did no good or benefit for humanity. In fact, it did just the opposite. So, how did this fix the sludge problem? Well, homogenization, what it does is it applies a great deal of pressure and agitation to the milk. And the goal here is to use these two forces to knock apart the butterfat molecules or globules to stop the cream from rising to the top, right? So this is what they told us anyway. Distribute that cream throughout. Everyone gets their fair share. You don't have to bother with the hassle of scooping the cream off the top. No more fighting over this. Homogenization was promoted as a cleaner way to drink your milk, as a way to stop fighting over the cream off the top between siblings. The reason they really started to do this was because of the sludge factor, the combination of dead bacteria and high white blood cell count due to mastitis on the bottom of the milk. So they homogenize the milk, which integrates everything, all the fat globules and sludge. And then the sludge problem was solved, and then homogenization was born, and now is in almost all dairy milk sold in the stores. All of this information is I am hoping that it's setting the stage for you to understand why I never ever recommend drinking homogenized milk, and what to prep you what to know before drinking pasteurized milk. Now, when it comes to drinking pasteurized milk, here are some important things to consider. One is that raw milk from cows raised on pasture and raised on non-GMO hay and grass and root veggies in the winter is, of course, absolutely the optimal choice, right? But let's say this isn't available in your area, then you absolutely want to do one thing, and that is avoid ultra pasteurized dairy. Much of the milk supply today, a lot of it, read the label when you go into the store. If that's your only option, an area to buy milk, read the label. Do not buy ultra pasteurized milk. This process heats the milk to 280 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 seconds. And just by doing this, they figured out, but if we do it in this way, it gives the milk a shelf life of at least a minimum of 6 months. Absolutely do not consume anything. Milk, juice, they ultra pasteurize a lot of things today, not just milk. Do not drink ultra pasteurized. If you're a healthcare practitioner, advise your clients to avoid ultra pasteurized anything. Everything is completely dead in that milk. And ultra pasteurized dairy products have been shown to also increase scarring of the arteries. Leave that shit on the shelf. That's not regular. That's the type of stuff that should be, not allowed. Okay, regular old pasteurization heats the milk up to 150 or 170. It depends on, there's two different methods. I'm not going to go into that, but heating to 150 better preserves the flavor of the milk. But it takes longer, and so most dairy processing plants are going to go with the 170. Now, it's unlikely to know which pasteurization method did they use. Did they go to 150? Did they go to 170? You don't know, but the important thing to know is that pasteurized milk kills all of the pathogens, good and bad, and all of the enzymes in the milk. So, this makes milk tasteless. Pasteurization takes the taste out of milk. It kills the enzymes. And it can denature the proteins. Literally, the food processing industry has trained us to like tasteless things. The mac and cheese diet, the kids who just eat one thing and they grow up on one thing. But the food processing industry knows this. It's their target to train us to dull our taste buds. And they have dulled our taste buds over time, over many years. And when they're questioned about this, like, hey, you guys know what's up here? You're messing with people's taste buds. That, you're selling them tasteless things. What do they have to say about that? Their response, one of their responses anyways, is people have gotten used to the taste of plastic. I cannot make this shit up. Okay. So, this right here, the way they process milk has actually quite likely been the biggest contributing factor to our dairy allergies. Yes, the jabs and the jab schedule is also contributes to this because of how it causes the immune system to be sensitive and reactive to anything that goes in the body. This is why allergies to foods and substance and certain substances have gone up over the years and not down, because the jab schedule has gone up over the years and not down, and it's gone significantly up over the years, and so has our allergy rates. And so it's not just dairy products that people are allergic to. A lot of people are sensitive and allergic to a lot of things, just like random things that you're like, right? And we have the food processing industry to blame for this, as well as the increased rate of jabs that are required. But what I want to say here is that I want to say something else about pasteurization when you're making your choice. So I wouldn't drink pasteurized milk. I would more so, if you cannot get real raw milk, get cultured dairy, focus on cultured dairy, yogurt, kefir, cottage cheese, no additives. There's like one ingredient, right? It's like whole milk, live active cultures, like that's it. Don't get what it's oh, um somebody bought goat yogurt the other day. Oh, we had Christmas. Somebody came, they brought goat yogurt. And I looked at the back of the thing. Tapioca starch. No, don't eat that. That should not be in your yogurt. They add it to goat milk yogurt because there's not a lot of fat in goat milk. And so they need to thicken it up. And so they put freaking tapioca starch in it. Tapioca starch should be an abomination. They put it in everything and people think it's okay because it's gluten-free and it's like a natural food. No, they process the heck out of it. Guar gum's another one. If you have guar gum in your cream cheese, no, leave it. Anyway, let's just say that. So pasteurization, when it comes to milk, no, don't eat it. If you have to choose pasteurized over homogenized, choose pasteurized. Do not drink milk that has been homogenized. No. And then, I would more so focus on cultured dairy, hard cheeses, yogurts, kefir, etc., right? Focus on those if you don't have real milk available where you are. Okay. So let's see. Let's just with the pasteurization homogenization thing, I want to just say one more thing here, and that is, I've said this, but I really want you to understand that these practices are not in place to protect the consumer. They're in place so the industry can produce an acceptable product using milk that would otherwise only be fit to feed pigs or chickens, and would be unacceptable for human consumption. So honestly, our pigs and chickens, we have extra milk, I give it to them. It's an amazing source of protein for them, the raw milk. They crush it. They crush it every time. Okay. So let's talk about, should we even be consuming dairy products anyway? Isn't it meant for baby cows, right? Should we only stick to the milk from our breed, humans, cows, goats, etc., right? Now, this suggestion, this theory stemmed from the vegan world. Uh need I say more? But this theory stemmed from the vegan world, and then it reached many people, and including myself when it first came out. I was like, maybe that's an interesting question. it's a mind fuck a little bit, right? But um Uh, so I was considering this concept for quite some time, until I started to think about it a little bit more and do some research around this and realize that cows have been providing their milk for their calves as well as for humans dating thousands of years back into prehistory. There's a record of reindeer being milked by humans over 11,000 years ago, 30,000 years ago. Other regions were milking antelopes and sheep and camels and goats and cattle have been milked ever since humans have had accessibility to these animals. And it's documented that humans have been raising and milking cattle for over 10,000 years despite their location. Location actually doesn't change much with regard to the cow and other than because every continent, there's cows on every continent, people drinking milk and using milk products on every continent. And really the biggest factor here around how the products are consumed is preservation. And there are cows, like for example, let's take cows living in Africa and parts of India. Well, this is where there's a lot of ghee because ghee prevents the milk from spoiling, has a longer shelf life than butter. And it's very hot in these areas, so the butter is going to go off pretty quickly. So what's a foolproof way to avoid that? Turn it into ghee, right? So, when I come down to really examining this question, mammals, milk, what's the deal here, right? For one, we have to look at what's the nutritional state of society. It's bad. It's poor. If we were to get a grade on it in school, it would be an F. So, um, most people don't consume raw dairy products or healthy dairy I'm sorry, is it Gogurt? Is not That does not count as a dairy product. Um, okay, like something in a tube with shit added to it. That is an upsell for the industry. It is a downsell for your health by a long shot. So when for one, we have to look at what is the nutritional state of society. It's bad. Most people aren't consuming wholesome dairy products on a daily basis. Most people have mineral and nutrient deficiencies, that which healthy dairy products can fill the gaps with there. And so we also have to consider bioavailability of nutrients. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit. Let's start with some of the main nutritional properties of dairy, which is what really makes this food for those who are not lactose intolerant and for those who aren't allergic or have a sensitivity to dairy. It's a no-brainer for adding into the diet. In fact, the absence of dairy products is likely going to create and fuel several nutritional deficiencies, which I suspect is absolutely one. There's many, but it's one of the issues with our modern food supply today. We're eating the wrong kind of dairy for hundreds of thousands of years. We've been consuming the real deal, and our bone structure was better, our dental health was better, our facial structure was healthier. We were able to lift heavier things, the physique and anatomy was solid. Sunlight, dairy products are some of two of the main reasons why I think this was really we don't have that today, right? So now I want to also note that while grass-fed dairy, particularly from A2 casein cows, is one of the most nutritious foods on the planet, okay? However, it should never be a substitute, or I should say very, very rarely be a substitute for mother's milk, particularly in the first year of breastfeeding. Reason being, it's not because dairy is bad. It's not because raw milk is bad or the proteins or the structure of that milk is bad. In fact, raw milk, you want to drink structured water, you better drink some raw milk, son. That's going to do it. That's like everybody's trying to structure what they're drinking. Raw milk is structured water intact. Okay, so but okay, let's talk about why shouldn't you give your newborn child raw milk from a cow or a goat or sheep, whatever. There are immune boosting substances, gut flora supportive bacteria in mother's milk, and a perfect balance of fat to protein ratio in mother's milk that the newborn needs. Now, same thing, when your cow calves, it has her calf, sorry, okay? So when the calf is born, the calf needs the cow's milk because of the colostrum. Cows who are not allowed to feed off of their mothers die very quickly. The death rate of calves who are not allowed to feed from their mothers, they die very quickly. They don't have enough colostrum, they don't have the nutrients to thrive, to develop, to boost their immune system, and the death rate is very high. The mortality rate is very high when this occurs. So we need to put the baby with mom's breast milk for this same reason, okay? Let alone the bonding that occurs between mom and baby, the secure attachment that starts to develop during this time. Only in dire cases should cow's milk be used in place of mother's milk during breastfeeding. Extreme cases. And even before going this route, I would look into a breast milk bank if breastfeeding is impossible. But I mean, honestly, it's a whole other bag of worms because this presents multiple issues that I'm only gonna mention one of today, which is, well, I'll mention a couple. Vax history. Oh, you're not giving your milk if you just got vaxxed or recently, or what's your history, and then you're gonna breastfeed my child. Nope. They're not gonna tell you this at the milk bank. You're just gonna go, you're gonna pick up the milk. Oh, wonderful. Might not be wonderful. When was the last time the mother took antibiotics? What's their drug and alcohol use or history? Is the mom smoking cannabis? Like, that's an acceptable thing to smoke cannabis and breastfeed your baby? People are cuckoo. Okay, so anyway, that's a whole other can of worms. Get a friend who's breastfeeding and they're doing they're on point with what you're doing, and if push comes to shove, that's a whole other topic. But when it comes to should I include dairy into my diet, again, without any allergies, sensitivities, lactose intolerance, etc., we have to consider this simple question. One is, and we should ask this question about, any food we're eating, really. Are the nutrients in this food that I'm eating bioavailable? Meaning, can my gut, can my cells, can my body utilize, absorb, assimilate the nutrients in this food that I'm going to be eating? Well, I mean, I guess you have to start with, how do you know if they are or not? How do you know? Animal foods and fats and proteins are among the most bioavailable food sources on the planet. That's one way to know. So, am I going to get the most bang for my buck nutritionally from eating this food? Is it going to meet my body's needs? Pasteurized and homogenized dairy? No, not so much. Raw and or cultured dairy that hasn't been heated to extreme temperatures. For example, yogurt making. You can make raw milk yogurt if you keep the temperature. If you have to heat milk to make yogurt. So when I do this, I heat the milk to 110, 115. This preserves the enzymes, the nutrients, the proteins in that milk, makes it an exceptional product. So, we have to understand the methods here. And we also have to understand that the diet of every successful human group on this planet has included generous amounts of bioavailable calcium in the diet. Of course, this varies depending on the region. For example, it can be exceptionally cold to keep cows in Alaska unless there's really good barns in place, which I'm sure some people have today. But, throughout history, before modern foods, the diets of Eskimos, they didn't drink milk. No, that wasn't like they weren't big milk drinkers. They weren't big dairy people, right? They got their bones from other sources, small fish, the stomachs of animals who ate fish, right? They got it from, this sounds disgusting probably to modern people, but they pickled birds and ate them whole. But the point here is we need more bioavailable sources of calcium, and we don't have that today in our modern diet. We don't have it, and we have major nutritional deficiencies and mineral deficiencies as a result. Where milking mammals existed, dairy was the primary source of calcium. So it's important to understand that you cannot simply eat foods that are rich in calcium and expect your gut to absorb and assimilate that calcium. For example, plant sources of calcium, such as broccoli. You Google calcium in broccoli. It's strong. It'll come up strong, right? Right? But they're going to be far less bioavailable than, say, whole milk yogurt from a grass-fed cow. There's no comparison to bioavailability of the protein, of the calcium, of the magnesium, the other nutrients in that yogurt compared to broccoli. So even though the calcium levels of some plant foods and some animal foods may look similar on paper, oh, this broccoli has as much calcium as this cup of yogurt, they are fooling you. That's a trick. That's not right. They are nowhere near similar once it enters your body, because plant sources of minerals are nowhere near as bioavailable as animal sources. Also, in order for the body to actually absorb and utilize calcium, there has to be animal fat present. Okay, calcium piggybacks on animal fat, and it transports it as to where it's supposed to go. Hopefully, mostly in the bones, right? So animal fat is necessary for the uptake, the absorption, assimilation, the utilization of calcium. This is why vegans and vegetarians have horrific bone health, especially long-term vegans and vegetarians. There's no bus to shuttle the calcium. Now, I always tell people I was killing myself during my vegetarian days and never felt worse. Because I literally never felt worse. And this is even when I was young, teenage years, early 20s, vegetarian. Those were, you're supposed to feel vibrant, vital. Like shit. I feel better now, almost 41. And than I did when I was in my early 20s. My body was literally starving for fats, proteins, nutrients, and it wasn't getting this need met. Let's talk about the fat and dairy products, because it's important from a nutritional standpoint. Butter fat. Butter fat. If anybody tells you to avoid butter, their advice is bad. Their advice is no good. You go elsewhere. Take that advice elsewhere. Butter fat is your freaking ally, and it's present in raw milk, of course, whole milk yogurt, cream, and other dairy products where the fat hasn't been removed. Skim milk, for example, no butter fat, and therefore makes the food a dangerous food in the sense that there's no fat there to absorb all the calcium and the protein in the skim milk. Now, there are several different types of fats in full-fat dairy. You can get omega-3s if the animal was raised on grass. But another fat that you're going to get, that this fat is very deficient in the modern diet. This is an issue. And this fat is CLA, conjugated linoleic acid. It's one of my favorite fatty acids. It is in butter fat. Cream contains this. It's one of the most protective molecules against cancer and heart disease, and it's primarily found in the fat of ruminants from both their meat and if you eat any type of dairy from these animals. It has to be grass-fed, particularly grass-fed. Now, there's a ton of other health benefits to dairy. And, I'll list a few of them here. If you're like, I'm still not convinced about this food. All right, we have antimicrobial properties, beneficial bacteria, live active enzymes, bioavailable sources of protein, fats, minerals like calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, essential amino acids, enzymes that protect against stress, fat-soluble vitamins, and undamaged proteins as long as the milk wasn't heated to high temperatures. Now, I want to say something here because when it comes to choosing, should raw milk only be fed to their the same mammal line, right? We need the nutrients in this food. Our bones need it, our nerves need it, our hormones need it, our uterus needs it, our eyes need it, our brains need it, our gut microbiomes need it. Back to our bones need it. Next week, I'm going to talk all about how to support bone health with sunlight and diet, but I want to mention here something that's really important. I can't wait till next week to tell you, it's too important. So we have a serious bone epidemic going on. People in their 20s should not have osteopenia. We should not have children that look like flagpoles, when they're 16 years old, 17 years old. So why do we have this though? Because we have this. This has to do with a lack of bioavailable nutrients in the diet, such as calcium, vitamin D, magnesium, and all of which are found in dairy products. So this is one reason we have a bone health issue. We have a bone health issue because of our excessive use and exposure to non-native EMFs, Wi-Fi, cell phones. You're exposed to this stuff, and it literally causes calcium to leak out of your cells, causing something called calcium efflux. This right there alone is going to cause serious bone health issues. If you work in this environment, first, quit your job, but second, if you can't quit immediately, you better be consuming the shit ton out of dairy products to help try and save your bone health while you're trying to figure out a new situation. Just Ethernet your line, honestly. And also from a lack of sunlight exposure. All of these three things into one bundle, it's like the perfect storm for bone health issues. So let's not forget the fact that most people don't move enough and their bones and muscles atrophy and weaken from indoor lifestyles. Right? And here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? We have been trained to have this mindset. Simple, easy button, whatever shit they're telling us, right? It's like, don't do any work. This, like farm work is peasantry work, or it's slave work, or whatever phrases they're saying, right? It's like, listen, we have forgotten how to work hard. Where's the grit in our kids today? There's no grit. There's no grit. For the most part, kids are lacking grit. We need to get our kids some grit. They need some grit. And, this comes from, you have to do something. You have to get out in front of a screen and actually go out and do something and move your body and pick things up and lift things, right? Gotta do this. And we don't do this anymore. So our bones are suffering. And last thing about bones. Most people are unaware that raw milk is a significant source of vitamin C and B vitamins, especially B6 and riboflavin. Now, these are essential nutrients that also play a huge role when it comes to bone health. But the nutritional qualities are destroyed when high heat is applied, like pasteurization. If you're sensitive to dairy, what would I recommend? Okay, try only consuming A2 dairy. Start there. Start with cultured dairy and or raw milk from grass-fed cows. People with cow dairy sensitivities tend to do much better with these implementations. Now, if it's still a no-go after trying these options, then I would explore sheep milk and lastly, goat milk. Or if you live somewhere else where there's another animal producing milk, okay. So when it comes to deciding if this food is a good idea to have in the diet, well, hopefully this podcast helped to shine some light on the subject so you can make a more balanced, more informed decision around your dairy intake. And what I didn't mention, I don't think, around homogenized milk, why I want you to avoid it is because the pressure and agitation that occurs when you homogenize milk, it makes the fat molecules go rancid, it oxidizes them. So then you are drinking rancid fats. And we know that that's a beeline to chronic disease, to inflammation, etc. So if you have to choose pasteurized or pasteurized homogenized, no, get non-homogenized milk, you know, if that's the right, never drink homogenized milk is what I'm saying. I'm going to leave you with this thought. Small family farms, they're disappearing at an incredibly high rate. The very small town of 400 people that my wife and I live in, it used to be teeming with farmers. Everybody was a farmer. It wasn't even a question. Well, what does he do? What do they do? What does she do? Oh, they raise this and that. They do, etc. When the old schoolers come to visit our farm, the people who have been here for years, say, "Oh yeah, well I used to raise, and we all used to help each other butcher each other's animals back in the day. And I remember coming to your farm when Mr. Tucker owned it and we processed his pigs." No one's doing I shouldn't say no, very few people are doing this anymore. And the old schoolers, they come like, "No one's doing this anymore. We haven't had animals in this town for blah, blah, blah years." So smaller family farms are disappearing at a rate of around over 1,000 per month. And if we want more accessibility to real milk and real food, we need to stop the momentum that this train is going along at. Of course, I'm not telling you to become a farmer. Farming isn't for everyone, but if you have any desire in your bones to farm, to even raise a few chickens, please consider this because it will have much more benefit on so many levels. You, your health, your family, your kids, the health of this planet. Um, Local foods, and it's going to support the local food system, but make it more accessible. Give people more accessibility to raw milk. Give more people more accessibility to real food. I'll see you next week.